On this super live unboxing, we're going to take a look at the AKG K371-BT. It's a lot of numbers and letters, but I'm actually excited about this headphone for a couple of different reasons. Reason number one is that, well, I've heard quite a few good things about the K371. This is kind of AKG's latest studio monitor, essentially. I kind of compare it to something like maybe the Audio-Technica M50X or the Sony MDR7506, a bunch of different letters and numbers if you don't know what those are, but you probably have heard of those headphones. This is kind of AKG's version of that. The other thing that I'm kind of really interested to find out is that the AKG K371, well, let me step back a bit. What I'm interested to find out is that a lot of people are looking for a headphone kind of like this, and I don't really have any good ones to recommend. You know, people want something around 200 bucks, closed back, over-ear fitting, and I don't really like the Audio-Technica M50X, even though it's got a new Bluetooth model. I don't really like the sound of that headphone. The Sony MDR I think is a little bit bright and aggressive for music listening for my tastes. And then even something like the Sony WH-1000XM3, that's a very popular Bluetooth over-ear fitting headphone. I think it does not sound very good, frankly, personal opinion, but I don't recommend that headphone. I'm interested to see is the AKG K371 something that I will recommend. So this is not a review right now, this is just a live unboxing, and I don't know, I'm gonna do a little tour of this product, and while I'm opening this thing up and showing you guys around it, feel free to ask me questions in the live chat. This is a live stream, this is live, this is not pre-rehearsed, but that should be kind of obvious anyway. Yeah, feel free to ask me questions in the live stream, and after I'm done unboxing this thing, I'll sit down and I'll go through those questions and answer them to the best of my ability, whether they're questions about the AKG K371-BT or they're questions about anything else I've been doing lately on the channel. And if you're watching this as a VOD, it's not live for you right now, what are you doing with your life? Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ding that notification bell, and I think then YouTube will let you know when I go live so that you can be part of this live experience if you care. If you don't care, well, you're getting what you want. Anyway, let's go ahead and open this thing up and we'll find out what we get inside this box. Ooh, not the best spin, but this is a big chonkin box on my table. So here we've got the K371-BT. On the front of the box, I don't know, what can we find out about it? You know, it's AKG. They do pull out the Harman branding, which is interesting because you know that AKG owns Harman, and Harman is known for their tuning targets. So ostensibly this thing should closely hit that target as sort of a studio monitor headphone. You know, they do call it out as a professional studio series headphone for professionals, just to be clear too. I am not a professional, I do not work in a studio, but let's come around here on the side of the box, get you in focus. Adjustable headband, okay. It folds up, which actually I'm pretty into because that's one of the things I do like about the Sony MDRs is the way that those things fold up and how compact they get. But again, not that big into the sound. And then down here, this is wired or wireless connection. So this is the Bluetooth version of this headphone, but of course it still supports a wire. Over here on the other side, well, just a pretty picture of it. So let's go back to the back of it. This is a lot of words, and I'm not going to read all of these right now for you because, one, I don't know how to read, and also I think that'd be pretty boring for you. But they do, let's see, they talk about their extended frequency response, which doesn't mean much. Titanium coated 50mm drivers, which doesn't necessarily mean much, but that is a relatively large driver for a budget over-ear headphone like this. And again, I can't remember, did I mention the price? The price on the K371 is about 180 bucks, and you can get the non-Bluetooth version of this for I think 150, but both of those models are already discounted, so you can get the non-Bluetooth version for like 130. And this thing, even though it just came out, like I just bought it a week ago, it just arrived today. This thing just came out and it's already discounted to lower than what I paid for it, which is kind of annoying, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, so yeah, we do know it's an over-ear closed back headphone, slow retention, isolating ear pads. I mean, that sounds to me like memory foam, but we'll find out. And this is actually interesting to me. So I did not expect this necessarily. They say that they have swipe controls for music and call control, which is, that's actually, I didn't expect that, right? You get that here in the Sony XM3s. You've got all of the swipey gestures, and it's kind of cool because it removes a lot of the need to have a bunch of buttons on here. But it can also be potentially problematic. We'll see how these things do. Also down here, let's see, we got a little bit more details on what's in the box, and this is going to be spoilers, so I'm not going to go through this too closely, but we do know that it supports Bluetooth 5.0, 40 hours of battery life. These things weigh 300 grams, which is a little bit more than the non-Bluetooth model, as you'd kind of expect. Frequency response of 5 Hz to 40,000 Hz, which is pretty typical, and a sensitivity of 114 dB SPL, which is actually pretty sensitive. So, I don't know. There's not much more we're going to find out about this headphone without opening it while I'm faffing around with it. So, might as well crack it open. Let's take a look. There are a lot of seals on this thing. Here comes the reveal. It's in a plastic bag. That's not very exciting. Actually, first thing here is we get a nice 3.5 millimeter to 1/4 inch adapter. Always appreciate it when they come with one of these. And also interesting is that it appears that this is of the screw-on variety. So I expect that the 3.5 millimeter cable that's going to come out of here, it's going to have a bit of thread on it, and then this thing will screw onto the front of it. I kind of like that because it means that the connection is going to be pretty secure if you're using it on a 1/4 inch adapter or on a 1/4 inch plug. Put those headphones aside, pull this out. That is a lot of mess. Pull that out, pull this out, and we're going to get rid of this box. All right, so of course we've got plenty of instructions, and because it's a Bluetooth headphone, I feel like they're probably going to be a little bit complicated. Not that Bluetooth is necessarily that complicated, but these companies do like to make their instructions nice and complicated. So there you go. That's actually relatively simple. Let's go ahead and close that up real quick. And over here, we've got some more instructions and more instructions. It's a lot of damn paperwork. That looks to be a QC card of some sort. And this is just kind of showing you how to fold this headphone up and down. This is also kind of calling out right here that there is a K361 model as well as a K371 model. And the K361 looks a lot like the same model, but I understand that the sound is actually a little bit different. I have not heard them both myself. In fact, I haven't heard either of them at this point, so no opinion on which one sounds better, but I've heard better things about the 371. In this bag, this little carrying bag, that's kind of cute, huh? Let's see what we get inside. Man, this is gonna be a lot of stuff for my table. That's a lot of cords. So let's see, first of all, there's your 3.5 millimeter connector, and down here, this is interesting, right, is we've got an XLR connector. And this is the connector that's going to plug into the headphone itself. A lot of headphones that have removable cables will have like a 3.5 millimeter. You know, that's what this thing has got. Here, the Sony WH-1000XM3. It's got a 3.5 millimeter cable on it. But with the AKG, we're going to have this little mini XLR cable, which just kind of feels cool, doesn't it? And you've also got this sort of accordion style cable, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it does mean that you can have a nice long sort of tether to a studio desktop and be able to walk around if that's a need for you. Probably won't be a need for me, but I'm certainly not going to grudge anyone for whom that is a need. This is gonna be a little bit messy here. All right, so what do we got here? We've got, looks like a shorter cable. This looks like a pretty standard, again, 3.5 millimeter to XLR end cable. And this one, lengthwise, I would say is probably about 3 feet, 3.5 feet. So that's probably going to be your average, your typical mobile headphone cable, right? If you're putting this thing on a DAP or on your phone and you're not using the Bluetooth, probably going to use that guy. And then finally, we've got one more cable. I'm not going to bother unzipping this one. This just appears to be a 10-foot version of this cable. So 3.5 millimeter to mini XLR 10-foot cable. That is way too long for all of my uses. So you, my friend, are probably just going to have to chill there. And then finally, we get to this USB charging cable. And this is going to be a thing that might disappoint some of you. Check this out. So, all right, we've got obviously USB-A on one end, and then over here, we've got USB micro. Not the biggest deal, you know, if you are really into USB-C, you're gonna have to stick with something like the Sony's that do charge with USB-C. But if you're okay with USB micro for charging your Bluetooth headphone, well, that's a good thing because that's what you get with the K371. Now let's go ahead and open up this headphone finally. Oh, look at that little plastic stand. Toss that aside and let's reveal this headphone. So there you go. The AKG K371-BT professional headphone. What do you guys think? Yeah, I'd say first impression is that it is kind of a dense feeling headphone, frankly. Well, let's see. Compared to the Sony XM3s, I would say that the AKG does feel a little bit heavier. The outer cups here, let's see. It's hard for me to tell what is metal and what is plastic, although, let's see, this part of the yoke appears to be metal. This part up here appears to be plastic, but it is covered in sort of a leatherette, which is actually quite nice. Down here, you've got a silicone strap or a silicone cover on that strap with a little bit of padding to it. And then you've got this, this resizing mechanism that I actually kind of like. I think it just kind of looks tidy. It's not going to be necessarily the most secure in terms of like holding your headphones in place because it's not the tightest fit, but I don't know. I think it's pretty nice. And then the outer cups here, they've got kind of a matte finish to them. I can't tell if that is a metal or a plastic, but it does feel like a nice high quality material. You know, compared to the Sony, let me get rid of these cables. These cables are bothering me. Compared to the Sony has got, you know, basically an all plastic build, but it's got kind of like a rubbery-ish coating to it that gives it a nice feel. It feels better than just a plastic headphone, but in my hands, I think that the build here on the AKGs actually does feel nicer. And then the pads here, it is a slight memory foam, which is nice. The opening appears to be relatively large. Let's compare that opening to the opening on the Sony's, although do note that these are aftermarket pads that I have on the Sony's, but basically the same size as stock. So those ear cups appear to be a little bit larger, which is nice. Down here on the bottom, of course, we've got that mini XLR connector that I referenced, that cable. It's going to plug into that. We've also got an on-off power switch because this is the Bluetooth headphone. We've got that micro USB charging connector. And other than that, no other buttons, which is interesting, right? You know, we talked about those touch functions that they've ostensibly baked into this. Based on the lack of buttons, we know that those touch functions are going to be required for toggling pause, play, skipping tracks, volume up and down, if that's stuff that this thing even supports. At this point, I don't know what this headphone supports. But that's interesting. So yeah, you can see also how this thing folds up. And interesting too, let's say you have a max size head, and I've got a fairly large head, so I'm certainly sympathetic to that. But let's say you've got a max size head. I've got this thing at its max level. If I try to fold it up like that, it doesn't actually fit. So you will have to ostensibly collapse this headphone a little bit in order to fold it up. But there you go. That's a little tight wad that we can get the K371 into versus, you know, the Sony's. This is about as tight a wad as they get into because the cups, well, there you go. That's about the comparison right there. What do you think? Looks like the K371 has a little bit of a advantage in compactness, but let's go ahead and throw these things on my dome and then start answering some questions. All right, so got the K371 completely unboxed. The cable appears to be on the left side. Yep, it is on the left side, and there are L and R indicators here on the inside of the headband. throw it in my head. And this is at max size, and it is too large for me. So my head is not quite max level. But I'm gonna collapse it a little bit, and definitely noting that my head is near max size. Getting a fit over my ears. My ears, yeah, totally fit inside of the ear cups. Noise isolation is definitely not the kind of noise isolation that you're gonna get with an active noise canceling headphone like the Sony's, but it is definitely blocking out some sound. Maybe I'm talking a little bit too loud or a little bit quiet, because we always talk a little bit awkward when we've got our hearing obstructed. But yeah, that is the headphone. What do you think? Is that a good look? Decent look? I don't know. Actually, maybe just for comparison's sake, I can show you what the XM3s look like, just because I know this is a popular headphone, and this is another one that I have to wear at roughly max height. So even though these things are turned off right now, I can say right away that the noise isolation on them is stronger than the sound isolation on the AKGs. And again, there's no noise canceling happening right now because these things are not turned on. Just kind of the natural state of it. But also worth noting is that the AKGs really aren't trying to be sound isolating headphones. It's more of a studio monitor. And so not necessarily what they're going for. But yeah, that's the headphone. Let's see. The around the neck wear. Hopefully that didn't interrupt the microphone too much. Around the neck wear is not terrible, but it's a little bit chunky. The cups don't fold flat against my chest, so something to keep in mind. But I can imagine going about my day with these things sitting right there. Oh, yeah, it's a nicely built headphone. I like the way that it feels. Like the matte cup is kind of got almost like a rough texture to it, which is interesting. Kind of reminds me of sort of like the rough matte texture that you might feel on sort of a rugged piece of equipment like a Ricoh GR camera. That's probably a reference most of you guys don't know, but it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the live chat questions and get to answering them. I know earlier before the live stream started, Intuit was asking me if I was going to compare these things with the K361, and the reality is I'm probably not going to. I just, personally for me, the over-ear headphone segment is not the most interesting. I'm a lot more interested in IEMs in general, but I'm looking for a solution in this bucket. So I'm hoping that this is the solution. If I don't end up liking this, I'm probably not gonna go to the 361 to see if I like that any better. But I don't know, maybe there's a chance. Sensualist saying that's hot. I think it's pretty hot. What do you think? You can already see right there that the adjustment mechanism just sort of like adjusted itself down. On one side, it appears to be a little bit looser than it is on the other side. Jake Leibowitz saying I should review the File M3 Pro. So that is the File M3 Pro is a new digital audio player, a little DAP, kind of small, kind of looks like the follow-up to the M3K. And it does look like a pretty interesting little player, although it doesn't have enough buttons for me, so I'm probably gonna skip it. In that price range, you know, like sub $100, I'll probably still stick with something like the X-Duo X3 Mark II, even though it's got some really dated software in terms of aesthetic. Functionality-wise, I actually quite like that. Uzum Christian is asking, have I given the K-Bear Diamond a listen yet? And if yes, what were my initial impressions? And the answer is yes. I did a live unboxing of the K-Bear Diamond yesterday morning, and I haven't spent a ton of time with them because frankly, all day yesterday I was working. But I did spend some time with them, and I was comparing them directly to the Tin Hi-Fi T4 because you can get both for around 80 bucks. The things that stood out to me about the K-Bear Diamond is, one, it is a bassy IM. If you're looking for a bassy IM, that's something to consider. The T4 in comparison is just, in my opinion, a more natural sort of mid-range forward sound with better treble detail. For my preferences, I much prefer the Tin T4, but in my brief experiences with the Diamond so far, there was nothing offensive about the sound. It was just a little bit more bass than I like, and the mid-range and the treble just not as emphasized the way that I like. I think overall it's a relatively smooth sound. The treble does have a little bit of, seems to have a little bit of treble air and extension, although the lower treble is not sharp at all. So again, nothing offensive in the sound. And when I say things that are offensive in the sound, typically what I'm talking about is either like the sound offenses that I mostly notice are going to be things like treble that is sharp, sibilance, or a bass that kind of booms into the mid-range. And I find that the bass on the Diamond is definitely elevated, and it's maybe just on the edge of being a little bit muddy into the lower mid-range, but it's not significant enough to the point that I would call it a big bother. I don't know. Taking a look at some other questions, bending my knees, make sure I don't pass out. Anyone ever passed out while standing up? I've heard that that's a thing, but I can't say that I've ever done it myself. Sounds fun. Intuit saying, I don't really get the point of Bluetooth without ANC, without active noise canceling. Personally, I guess some people just hate cords. And yeah, that's a good thing. It's actually kind of an interesting thing to talk about, right? When you're considering a headphone, what are the different things that you prefer? What are your values, and what are the features and functionalities that you're personally looking for? When it comes to Bluetooth, for me, noise canceling is actually not usually a thing that I really care about. Noise canceling for me is most effective. Like the only time in my life, frankly, where I really was like, I'm thankful I have noise canceling, was when I was on a 20-hour flight to Thailand. I was really thankful for noise canceling then. Outside of that, like my daily life, especially lately, doesn't involve a lot of like public transit or anything like that. I'm not spending a lot of time in noisy places. Lately, I'm of course spending all my time at home, but even outside of all this coronavirus lockdown stuff, I'm spending most of my time in an office that's relatively quiet, so I can listen to a Bluetooth headphone, no problem, or I'm spending my time here at home, relatively quiet. Like I can sit down with a closed back headphone, listen to music while my wife is on the couch watching TV, and that's not a problem for me. I don't need that much active noise canceling to deal with that sort of noise level. Mostly that sort of active noise canceling is really effective with just like grating, droning sounds like planes, train tracks, or just like, you know, imagine you're on the BART in San Francisco and it's just kind of howling. That stuff noise canceling is great for. I just don't find that stuff in my life very much. So for me, Bluetooth is mostly just about convenience. It's about moving around the house without wires, moving around the office without wires. And again, a little bit of noise canceling or sort of passive noise canceling can be appreciated to appreciate the music. But mostly I just, you know, when I want a closed back headphone, it's just because I don't want to annoy people around me. Essentialist asking, I have to straight up ask, what Bluetooth codecs does it use? I couldn't find it on Google. So based on their website, from what I could tell, it's going to support, I think it was on their website. Crap, where was it that I found it? There was somewhere that I did find which Bluetooth codecs it supports, and I believe that it was AAC, SBC, and aptX, but not LDAC. So I would not expect LDAC out of this thing. Maybe when I'm done answering some questions, I'll actually connect this to my phone and kind of go through the different options and see what it connects with, because that would actually be very useful to do live here. But I believe it's just up to aptX is sort of like the max. And I don't think it was any particular brand of aptX. They just described it as aptX. LDAC, LDACs versus aptX, you know, ostensibly there are some differences, but the only headphone that I really have that supports LDAC is this. And in my opinion, this thing over SBC sounds almost exactly the same as it does over LDAC, which is to say, I don't think that headphone has very good resolution. Rikudu Goku is clarifying that it has AAC and SBC. I think it does also have aptX, but again, I'm going to connect it in just a minute and verify that. Shamu Hawks Suraji is asking how much is this, and thank you Rikudu Goku for answering for me. But yeah, 180 bucks is sort of the MSRP of this headphone, but like a lot of headphones, and I'm not sure what it is with this segment, but basically every headphone from like major manufacturers like this, you can always buy it for cheaper than the MSRP. And this thing has just come out, and on Amazon, it was already like 160, 170 bucks. So it's already cheaper than the price. Sungjin Woo says it looks cheap. In my opinion, it doesn't feel cheap. I think that this thing feels very much like, feels very much worth its price. It's got a nice fit to it. I think that the Sonys, the XM3s, these things feel a little bit cheaper to me, even though they've got a nice finish to them, and I wouldn't complain about these things feeling cheap. Just in my hands, I think that the AKG feels a little bit nicer, and part of it's probably because of that weight, so I'm fooling myself a little bit, but just overall, yeah, I think they actually feel pretty nice, pretty into it. And the fact that this headband, even though it's plastic, is covered in a pleather, gives it a nice little touch. People will seem to be excited about the coiled cables. Essentialist, do you like a coiled cable? I'm interested. Why is that? This thing just seems annoying to me. But I gotta say, I don't actually think any of my headphones that I've got right now have coiled cables, so it's been a very, very long time since I've lived with one. Maybe I'd have some appreciation for it. And Digital Nation saying, hi everyone, much love from Indonesia. What's up in Indonesia? What time is it over there right now? Here in San Francisco, California, it's about noon, which means I should go get some lunch. And then Sanan saying 2 live videos in 2 days. Damn, yeah, you know what? I got some things to do. I've actually got one more thing that I gotta do a live unboxing of very soon, and it's the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 2, which maybe I'll do tomorrow, maybe I'll do Monday, I don't know. But it's gonna be coming up pretty soon. I'm gonna be doing a review of these, a full review of these things, but for now, this is just sort of a live unboxing and intro. And while it seems like we're out of questions, I'm gonna go ahead and connect this to my phone and see what kind of Bluetooth codecs we're talking about. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way, because man, that is just an ugly mess. We got to worry about our aesthetics a little bit, right? AKGs, got the headphones here. And for testing this connection, I'm gonna go ahead and pull in my Sony Xperia. Clear off my notifications so I don't say anything, show anything embarrassing, but here's my Xperia and the headphone. Wow, I'm actually probably gonna reveal the fact that I don't know anything about this headphone in terms of how to turn it on. Don't know how to use a phone, obviously. But yeah, so we've got the power switch down here on the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on and hope that this thing has got enough of a charge to actually turn on. Otherwise, this is gonna be kind of embarrassing, right? We do have a blinking light. It's a good sign, although hopefully it doesn't blink for forever. And then we see the headphones show up immediately. Connect to the BT. Nope, doesn't need access to anything, thank goodness. And we appear to be connected. It's got about 90% battery life out the box, which is nice. And if I click into settings, will I be able to see anything about the Bluetooth connection here? I can't, so I'm gonna have to go into my developer settings. And let's go ahead and punch in here. It was a little bit on the bright side. All right, so take a look at my developer settings. Hopefully there's nothing in here incriminating, but man, certainly might be. Developer options, and then if you don't have developer options already installed on or set up on your Android device, get that in focus. You can look up how to enable developer options for your particular phone. It's mostly the same process, but once you have developer options, you can go in, you can scroll down, and you can see what Bluetooth codec your phone is currently using. And it looks like Bluetooth codec is streaming AAC. So that's interesting. So this maybe goes to counteract my earlier suggestion that this thing supports aptX. Is it shows AAC. So what you can do sometimes, right? Obviously it shows me that I can select any codec I want, but it's not actually gonna work that way. But sometimes I have had some success, like I'll select aptX. It's going to say I'm streaming quality of aptX, but if I leave developer options and go back in, scroll back down, I am expecting that it will have reset itself back down to AAC, and that is the case. So it does appear that AAC is in fact the maximum Bluetooth codec for this headphone. Sorry, I said otherwise. I'll have to find out where it was that I read, where I thought that I read that the codec supported up to aptX. Maybe that's when I was reading the specs on the Sennheisers? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, AAC is the max that we've got, and that is the AKG K371. So yeah, I mean, that's gonna be the end of this live stream. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you very much for the questions. And if you're interested in my evaluation of this headphone, I will be doing a full review of the AKG K371-BT, and I'm gonna compare it to some other headphones like these Sony XM3s, which again, spoiler, I don't really like the XM3s very much. I don't really like the Audio-Technica M50X that much. There's a good chance I won't like this, but I think I actually will. But yeah, so if you want to stay around for that, subscribe to the channel. You can also join the Discord chat and kind of ask me questions in real time as I'm listening to this headphone. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.